Ederson transfer to Manchester United collapses as club turns attention to Manu Kone. Welcome back to Carrick United Analysis, the channel thousands of United fans trust every single week for honest, clear, and reliable transfer news about our club. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel has become the true home for fans who want the real story, without the noise and without the guessing games. Today we have a big and dramatic story to break down, and it is one that has completely changed the shape of United's midfield rebuild this summer. Manchester United's move for Atalanta midfielder Ederson has collapsed. After weeks of back-and-forth medical checks, delays caused by the World Cup, and growing doubts in the media, United have finally pulled the plug on what was meant to be one of the first big pieces of business in Carrick's midfield rebuild. Atalanta, meanwhile, maintain that Ederson is 100% fit and have already welcomed him back into their squad for preseason training. With the deal now off, United have wasted no time turning their attention toward a new target, AS Roma midfielder Manu Kone. Let us start with a big question right away. How does a transfer that looked almost certain to happen just a few weeks ago suddenly fall apart at the very last stage? Today we are going to walk through exactly how this story unfolded, why the deal collapsed, what Carlo Ancelotti and Atalanta think about the situation, and why United appear to be moving quickly toward Manu Kone as their new midfield target. Let us get into it. How this story began. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind a little. Back at the beginning of June, Manchester United and Atalanta reached a club-to-club agreement for Ederson, worth somewhere in the region of £35 to £39 million, or around €45 million, depending on how the various reports have described the structure of the deal. Personal terms were also agreed with the player, and Ederson himself was reportedly desperate to make United his priority over other interested clubs. Everything looked to be moving smoothly toward a completed transfer. Ederson was expected to travel to England, complete a medical, and sign his contract in plenty of time before preseason began. Then everything changed with one phone call. Here is a fair question to think about. How often does one single event completely change the direction of a transfer that already looked close to finished? In football, it happens more often than fans might expect, and this is exactly one of those situations. The World Cup call-up that changed everything. Brazil manager Carlo Ancelotti made a late decision to call Ederson into his World Cup squad, bringing him in as a replacement for injured right-back Wesley. This was a significant show of trust from Ancelotti, who chose Ederson specifically to add balance and versatility to his squad, even testing him out at right-back in training sessions to make use of his pace and adaptability. Ancelotti has been extremely open in his admiration for Ederson throughout this whole process, praising his physical strength, his high-intensity style of play, and his tactical intelligence. He has also spoken publicly about how much Ederson has developed under respected coach Gian Piero Gasperini at Atalanta, describing him as a solid, hard-working player who is fully ready for top-level international competition. Here is a question worth sitting with. Why does it matter so much that a manager of Ancelotti's stature holds this level of belief in a player's physical condition and readiness? Ancelotti is one of the most decorated coaches in football history, and when someone with that much experience places this much trust in a player's fitness and character, it becomes an important piece of context for everything that followed. Because of this late call-up, Ederson's medical with United had to be delayed. Instead of completing his transfer before the World Cup, he had to combine international duty with the ongoing transfer process, creating exactly the kind of timing conflict that can complicate even the most straightforward deals. The first, medical and growing concerns. Even with the delay caused by the World Cup, Ederson still managed to complete an initial medical assessment. However, reports soon suggested that some concerns had been raised during those first tests, throwing new doubt onto a deal that had previously looked close to certain. Once Brazil's World Cup run came to an end, following their exit against Norway, United arranged a second and more detailed round of medical testing. At first, this was widely seen as a formality, simply confirming Ederson's overall physical condition before finalizing the move. However, it soon became clear that this second round of checks was far more serious, described by some reports as an opportunity to conduct thorough medical examinations, specifically looking into concerns about a possible long-term knee issue. Here is a fair question to ask yourself. Should extra medical checks like this always be seen as a bad sign? Or are they sometimes simply responsible due diligence from a club investing tens of millions of pounds in a player? In most cases, extra checks are simply thorough business. But when those checks are specifically targeting a suspected long-term injury concern, it naturally raises the stakes considerably. The deal officially collapses. Despite earlier insistences from sources close to the club that there were no issues with the move, The situation eventually reached its conclusion. Manchester United informed Atalanta that they would not be proceeding with the transfer after all. According to trusted transfer reporting, the deal is now considered fully collapsed, with Atalanta confirming they believe Ederson is completely fit and have already welcomed him back into their own preseason plans. Here is a question worth thinking about. If Atalanta, the club who know this player's medical history better than anyone else, are confident enough to immediately reintegrate him into their own squad, what does that tell us about how differently two clubs can interpret the exact same set of medical information? Football clubs sometimes reach very different conclusions from similar data based on their own internal risk assessments, medical philosophies, and financial considerations. For a player who was reportedly desperate to join United and had already prioritized this move above other suitors, this collapse represents a genuinely difficult moment in his career. Being so close to a big move, only to see it fall apart at the final stage, is one of the harder situations any professional footballer can go through. Why some reports question United's true reasoning? This is where the story gets even more interesting. Some reports coming out of Italy have suggested that the medical concerns may not tell the full story behind this collapse. According to this line of thinking, United's real motivation may have been a desire to pivot more aggressively toward a different midfield target altogether, using the delayed medical results as a convenient point to walk away from the agreement. Here is a fair question to consider. Is it more likely that a genuine medical concern caused this collapse, or that United had already begun rethinking their midfield strategy and used this situation as an opportunity to change direction? At this stage, we cannot say for certain which explanation is more accurate, and fans should treat this specific theory with some caution until more concrete details emerge. What we do know for certain is that United's attention has shifted very quickly toward a new midfield target. Manchester United turn attention to Manu Kone. With the Ederson deal now off the table, Manchester United have launched an immediate inquiry into signing AS Roma midfielder Manu Kone as their primary alternative. The 25-year-old French international has heavily impressed while starting for France during their World Cup run this summer, and he is reportedly viewed by head coach Michael Carrick as a superior tactical fit for United's new midfield system. Let us think about why Kone might appeal so strongly to Carrick specifically. Kone shares many similar attributes to Aurelien Tchouameni, another name we have already discussed extensively on this channel in connection with United's midfield rebuild. He offers strong ball-winning ability, composure in possession, and the physical profile needed to compete at the highest level of the Premier League. Here is a question worth sitting with. If United missed out on a more expensive target like Tchouameni earlier in the summer, does a move for Kone represent a smart, more cost-effective alternative that still fills the same tactical need? Based on his recent performances for France on the biggest stage in football, many analysts would say Kone represents exactly that kind of pragmatic, well-judged pivot. Reports suggest Roma would be willing to sell Kone for a fee in the region of £50 million, which, while significant, still represents a different kind of investment compared to some of the other high-profile midfield targets United have been linked with this summer. Why Kone could be a strong tactical fit? Let us dig a little deeper into why Carrick specifically sees Kone as such a strong option for his evolving midfield system. Kone made a significant number of appearances in all competitions for Roma last season, helping the club qualify for the Champions League, and he has continued to build his reputation on the international stage throughout the World Cup. His combination of ball-winning instinct and forward-driving ability with the ball at his feet fits well with the kind of dynamic, athletic midfield profile that United appear to be building this summer, alongside players like André Santos, who has already agreed his own move from Chelsea. Here is a fair question to ask. Do you think adding a player like Kone, known for his energy and tactical discipline, would help balance a midfield that already includes more creative or attacking-minded options elsewhere in the squad? Modern football places huge value on midfield balance, and Carrick appears to be thinking carefully about exactly that kind of structure as he builds his squad ahead of his first full season in charge. What this means for United's wider midfield rebuild. Let us zoom out and think about the bigger picture here. United have already added André Santos from Chelsea this summer, and were previously working toward completing a deal for Ederson before that transfer collapsed. With Manuel Ugarte facing a lengthy spell out through injury, and Casemiro having departed the club, United still have real urgency to strengthen their central midfield options before the new season begins. A move for Manu Kone, if completed, would represent United's third major midfield addition of the summer, even after the disappointment of losing out on Ederson. This tells us that despite this setback, the club remains fully committed to fixing one of the most important areas of the squad. Here is a question worth thinking about. Does a setback like the collapse of the Ederson deal actually show real resilience in how United are approaching this summer, given how quickly they have already turned their attention toward a strong alternative option? Many fans would agree that reacting quickly and decisively after a disappointment like this reflects positively on the club's overall transfer strategy this summer. How should fans feel about this situation? It is completely natural for fans to feel frustrated or disappointed by news like this, especially after weeks of build-up and anticipation around the Ederson deal. However, it is worth remembering that transfers fall through more often than casual fans sometimes realize, and a responsible football club should always prioritize long-term medical certainty over short-term excitement, especially when investing significant money in a player's future. Here is a fair question to consider. Would you rather see United complete a transfer despite lingering medical uncertainty, or walk away from a deal to protect the long-term fitness and value of their squad, even if it means missing out on a player who was clearly well regarded by his international manager? Most experienced football people would argue that protecting long-term squad health, even at the cost of short-term disappointment, is almost always the smarter and more responsible decision for a club to make. What to watch for next? As this situation continues developing, here are a few important things every United fan should keep a close eye on. Watch closely for official confirmation or denial regarding United's interest in Manu Kone, along with any progress on agreeing a fee with Roma. Keep an eye on how Ederson's immediate future unfolds at Atalanta now that he has been welcomed back into their preseason plans. And pay attention to any further reporting that might clarify exactly what role the medical concerns played in United's final decision to walk away from the deal. This channel will continue tracking every single update connected to this story as it develops. From official club statements, to trusted transfer reporting, to detailed breakdowns of how a potential Manu Kone deal could reshape Carrick's midfield plans, Carrick United Analysis will be right here bringing you the full picture, explained in simple and honest language every single time. Wrapping things up. So there we have it. Manchester United's move for Ederson has officially collapsed, following growing concerns raised during a second round of medical testing, despite strong public backing for the player from Brazil manager Carlo Ancelotti throughout this entire process. Atalanta have already welcomed Ederson back into their preseason plans, confident that he remains fully fit and ready for top-level competition. Meanwhile, United have moved quickly, launching an immediate inquiry into AS Roma midfielder Manu Kone, viewed by Michael Carrick as a strong tactical fit for the midfield system he is building ahead of his first full season in charge. This is exactly the kind of unpredictable twist that makes transfer windows so difficult to follow and so exciting to cover. A deal that once looked close to certain has fallen apart, but United appear determined to move forward quickly and decisively toward their next target, rather than allowing this setback to slow down their wider midfield rebuild. Thank you so much for reading and for being part of this community here at Carrick United Analysis. If this breakdown helped you understand this dramatic transfer story a little better, please share it with fellow United fans who need the real story instead of guesswork. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, turn on notifications so you never miss an update, and drop a comment below telling us how you feel about United potentially moving for Manu Kone instead of Ederson this summer. We will see you in the next one, right here at Carrick United Analysis, your trusted home for honest Manchester United coverage. Glory, glory, Man United.